We are coming to the final part of our normal hand movement understanding. So in the previous classes, we had seen how the task environment and the human system, nervous system come together, biological system come together in order to help in the production of movement. So now we are going to see a very, very important part, but yet unanswered part about control of reaching movements. Now, how does the brain control movement is a big question that we are going to see. So, what I would like you to understand is how does the brain bring about a coordinated movement. Now, how we are going to go about with this part is we are going to ask a series of questions and then we are going to try and answer for those questions. So first question is, what does the brain take as reference for movement? So what we mean by this is what is the basis for the brain to make a movement? Okay, so does the brain decide to reach the target? Okay, that's the first one. So what I mean by this is does the brain doesn't worry about how we are moving, but does it take into consideration, okay, an object is in front of me, it is there, so the brain decides, okay, my only goal is to reach for the target. All right, now if it has to do so, the location of the target has to be identified in relation to the body. This information has to undergo a lot of transformations to finally produce the right muscle activity. So what are the transformations? There are multiple transformations. So as we discussed before, if you want to reach for an object, the distance has to be calculated. Then to move that amount of distance, how much joint movement is required, and in order to move the joint from here to there, how much force needs to be generated across all the joints, and then finally, in order to produce so much force across all the joints, how much amount of motor units and muscle fibers have to be activated. So these calculations have to keep happening within the brain in order to decide if the brain has to reach the target. So this problem of multiple conversions when we decide to do a movement should happen automatically, and it's called as um, yeah, it's called as a inverse approach, in the sense we think that the muscle activity is produced to a certain level, say 100 microvolts of muscle activity is produced, and this creates force of say 10 newton force, and this 10 newton force causes the joint to rotate by say 10 degrees, and this 10 degrees is what contributes to the final movement. So that is how normally it works. But if that has to happen, the final 10 the final 10 degrees of movement has to happen, then the brain needs to calculate by going back and calculating for that how much amount of for that range how much amount of um, muscle force has to be generated, and it has to calculate how much amount of muscle activity has to be generated. So it goes in an inverse way, and then it tries to calculate how much, and then it executes that. So this is a huge problem. Say for example, you are going to try and reach for an object. At that time, do you think it will be possible for all these calculations to get over and then go into it? So that's one of the problem. Now the second way in which the brain could control the movements is instead of trying to think about the external object, it just tells that, okay, not to go for that, I need to produce so much amount of activity, and it pre-programs. So it's like a plan of action, right? So you prepare well and then you start building the building. It's kind of it. So instead of worrying about the object, it can think that, okay, I need to produce for if the object is close by, I need to produce so much amount of activity. Now what do you think could be the problem when we are trying to have a plan and trying to execute it? You all would have had a plan. I need to prepare for the final year exam in so and so manner. So you would have put up a plan, and then you'd be going on your daily activities and you'll be trying to execute the plan. Yeah. So as you would have rightly guessed, whenever we put a plan, when it's getting executed, it doesn't necessarily get executed that way, because we have some internal problems, but more importantly there might be external factors, right? So you want to plan and study for your exam in a particular way, but then the lecturer gives you a lot of workload which is very different from what you have planned, so your plan entirely goes awry and you're not able to execute. Similarly, say there is an object in front and you're trying to reach for it, but then in between you might end up slightly in front of it. Or say for example you are trying to catch a ball, the ball might decelerate automatically. There might be a stone in between and you might need to there might be a stone in between when the ball is rolling, so you might have difficulty in picking it up. Or when the ball is coming from up, it may tend to accelerate more and more as it comes closer to us, and so all these problems could be there, and this has to be moment to moment. We need an awareness in order to correct these things, and that might become pretty tough. So if you're going to have a plan and your muscles are going to act, it's going to be problematic. So at the present point of time, people think that there is either this or that, and they have done a lot of experiments and they've come out with, okay, it might be this, but we need to understand it more in depth. So now the next question is, okay, with what reference did we take the action? Was it in reference to external one, or there was an internal plan with that, right? Now when it comes to execution, now your brain has decided that it has to happen. So how does it execute, right? The control. So that's, it can have multiple things that it can try and execute of. So the first one is it can execute according to kinematics, right? So the brain may try to control the kinematics of movement. So if it controls the kinematics, now what happens is the joint angles are specified by the brain. So this information now has to be transformed into appropriate joint torque and muscle activity, as I had told before. So when it's executing, it's controlling the joint, right? Then basically if it's joint angle, then you need to have a stable you will have to have a variable muscle activity, and you'll have to have variable joint torques, okay? Because say for example, if you're moving a joint, a shoulder joint, when you initiate a movement, the weight of the limb is close by to the shoulder joint, right? Now as you reach forward and forward, what happens is your limb gets longer and longer. Now when your limb gets longer and longer, the weight of the limb starts increasing, right? As you go away from the fulcrum, then the lever arm, the weight arm, sorry, the weight arm gets larger and larger. So your muscle cannot, for the first 10 degrees, how much muscle activity it produced, it cannot have the same amount of activity for the next one. So the muscle activity has to be altered all the time, right? So that is if it is going to have a control of kinematics. Now on the other hand, if it is going to control the amount of muscle activity, the brain specify this much as amount of muscle activity. It has been very clearly proven that the same amount of activation doesn't produce the same joint movement in all situations. Like I said before, it cannot produce it. Similarly, suddenly if a load is added, say for example you're going to you're moving, turning on one direction, not seeing it, you're just moving. In between, if some obstacle comes, immediately you alter the movement pattern, right? So if the brain is going to calculate and control the muscle activity, then it's going to be again pretty tougher for that. But these are some of the ways in which the movement, the final target, can be achieved. Okay, all right. So so people have tried identifying what is that the brain is specifying when it's trying to execute the particular movement. Now, what they've done is they have tried out doing different movements during reaching for objects, and what they wanted to identify was what is stable or what is common for all the activities. Then we can come to a conclusion that this is a particular thing that the brain is trying to control. So when you say, for example, you're having an object and you're trying to reach, right? So the amount of distance through which the limb moves, now this is determined by an external factor. So automatically between each and every movement this has to keep changing. So that cannot be something which the brain is trying to control, because the external object will obviously control it. So the next thing is, say the degree of shoulder movement. Now whenever you move, you will see that during one time when you are reaching, the shoulder movements might be higher and the elbow movements might be lesser. At other time the elbow movements may be higher and shoulder movements might be lesser. So these are natural variations which tend to happen. So then they said that that is not what it is controlling, that is the amount of joint range of the joints is not, it's not controlling. What they have found is, one thing they have found it very common is the trajectory of the wrist. Whenever we are trying to move from one place to the other place, the trajectory could either be slightly curved or it could be straight. Now you can just keep an object in front of you and you can try reaching for it. I'll give you a moment to try for that. Try reaching any object which is in front of you, right? So the shortest distance between your hand and that object is a straight line, but you can also see that there is a small amount of curve movement. You will be doing it in a slight arc like movement. So what they found was this was common whenever we were trying to reach objects which are placed in different places, or whatever was the type or shape of the object. This was one thing which was common. So people thought that, okay, the brain might be trying to control the trajectory of the wrist, and for that, in order to get that trajectory, it might be generating a muscle activity. The next one is the timing of peak velocity of movement or similar across tasks. What I mean by timing of peak velocity, whenever you accelerate, all right, what happens is you initially it's slow and then it accelerates fast and then it starts coming down slowly. So what people found was the velocity at which you move very fast during a particular movement was similar across movements. Say for example, you're moving an object which is 10 centimeter in front of you, right? Then what I found was in the initial 1/3 of the movement was the peak movement was there, and then it slowly started slowing down. When you move the object to a farther position, say 30 centimeter, now the peak velocity where it happened changed from that of 10 centimeter, but still it was maintaining at 1/3 of the movement of it. So the timing of peak velocity was one thing which they found it common. So these were few things which they found to be not variable, or they called it as invariant characteristic of a movement, and they told that, okay, the brain is trying to control this. Yet we have yet to come to a conclusion about what exactly it's trying to control, whether it's this it's trying to control. So there are finally two theories about what does the brain control, or how does it not what does it control. It basically tells about how does it control. So one is called as a distance programming theory, the other one is called as a location programming theory. Now what's a distance programming theory? The brain calculates the distance between the hand and the target, activates the agonist to reach a proportion of distance, and the movement is ongoing. As the agonist is activating, it stops the agonist and activates the antagonist. So the antagonist is going to prevent you from moving very fast. So it's going to decelerate the movement, and finally it's going to come to a target. So what distance is there? They tell that the brain just gives an acceleration command to the agonist, and at a point of time it stops, and then it just it then activates the antagonist. There seems to be some proof for this kind of control. The second type of control is called as location programming theory. What's a location programming theory is the brain doesn't control when the agonist and when the antagonist has to act and stop. Rather, what it has is as a factor of learning from our young age, the brain identifies that in which workspace, say for example you have a workspace in front of you. A functional workspace is the place where your arm can reach out in order to interact with objects. So that's functional objects. So the brain has been taught what is the amount of stiffness that the joint has to have. Now what is a joint stiffness is basically it's like a rubber band, you know, TheraBands, right? So you have multiple TheraBands. So if you have to move a little bit of distance, right, then you can have a TheraBand which gives you least resistance. You pull it and your arm will move to a little bit of distance. If you have to move more, then you need to have a stronger TheraBand where you pull it to the same distance, it will pull you with more force, right? So similarly what they said was your agonist muscle is a TheraBand and your antagonist muscle is a TheraBand. So if your agonist muscle is a LO TheraBand, which is a weak TheraBand, and your antagonist muscle is say green TheraBand, which is much more stiffer. So if you just tie them across joint to the on bone, what will happen? If you leave it off, then the movement will be more towards your antagonist muscle. So you just tie it and leave it from a central position, you tie it and leave it. So whichever muscle is tighter, towards that it will move, right? Clear? So similarly what happens is the stiffness of the TheraBand is what is being controlled, and this is called as location programming theory. And currently this theory seems to have a huge credibility, and it has come out from the work of a very famous motor control researcher called Anatol Feldman. His theory is referent configuration hypothesis and your equilibrium point hypothesis. So your location programming theory is told like this, but currently it has moved on from the status of being a theory. For the past 50 years the theory has been extensively argued, and at the current point of time we don't seem to have any other alternate theories, but this theory seems to be more. So if you are interested in knowing more about this particular theory, we can have entire 2 to 3 hours of discussion about this, because it's quite interesting, quite vast, and that seems to throw in a lot of information for us to understand about how the movement is going to go on. And as always, motor control theory is going to provide us with new insights and new methods of tackling our patients' problems. So that's going to happen. So you can read work of also Latash, Mark Latash. He's one of the greatest motor control scientists we have living amongst us. We can equate Dr. Anatol Feldman and Latash to Einstein of our times. They have given this location programming theory, albeit by a different name, as I said, equilibrium point hypothesis. So I'll look more into this. So that completes on the basics of or outline of what is being controlled and what are the problems in the control system if you're trying to control a particular thing. So for any doubts, please do message me. Thank you.